Hello, welcome to another episode of Back to the City. I am very happy to be joined by Adam Wortham, aka Larry Wish. Today, welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
So today, the day that we filmed this, you announced there's a double record release party. So the record that we're about to be diving into, which I love, is The Mind is a Builder by Larry Wish. And the release show is at the Eagles on April 20th.
Yes.
In your post today, you shared the extremely fortuitous and great thing about this show is that it is, in fact, a double LP release show with my friend Rupert Angel-Eyes, who's putting out Pillow Talk.
Yes.
And also extremely fortuitous and great is that the guest who's coming in to film the final episode of this season immediately after this one is none other than Kyle, aka Rupert Angel-Eyes.
Oh my. Yeah, serendipitous. That's just perfect that it worked out like that.
I'm reading my book about synchronicity at the moment, and I think it's a strong case.
Yes.
It's a strong case of synchronicity.
Lots of alignment going on right now.
And I think that there is actually between the two records in an interesting way. I think my favorite moment, the sweetest moment, certainly, in this record of yours, is in the song Being There, and now I say, Ivy, you are my light and you are my sunshine. In the Rupert Angel-Eyes record, there's a song called Palm Springs, and it ends with Rupert asking, do you need a light? I'll be your light.
Oh, wow. Oh, cool. I haven't heard his album yet, so I'm really excited to hear it when it comes out.
Yeah, I've just been, before I knew that there was a double record release in preparation for today, I was just listening to the two back to back.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool. It just seems like it was very much all meant to be, and it feels good to kind of, I love the feeling of like thinking that you're on track and that everything is supposed to be as it is. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a good feeling, like pat on the back feedback loop.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I've been feeling a lot of that, especially within the past like couple of days.
How has that been showing up for you?
It's been showing up. Well, I'll say that it's been showing up in terms of kind of getting over like a slight period of difficulty. My wife Ivy and I both had food poisoning at the same time, which is why I had to cancel, of course, our previous recording date.
Which was going to be the last episode in the season,
right.
Which led to me thinking, okay, we've got some studio time, let's get someone else in. And then I was working a box office shift and Kyle walked in. I was like, Kyle, you have a record coming out. There's an open slot. Come in. So
even those kind of like nasty things in our lives sometimes can bear like very beautiful and sweet fruit. Like even though, the entire family was sick, we still had to take care of our 1-year-old and like muddle through food poisoning, and then everyone got sick again after that. But now everyone's healthy and well, and I've just been feeling very good about this album that's coming out and feeling good about reaching out to people for press and feeling very good about doing this interview today. And just there are a lot of things to be thankful for and grateful for me right now.
I think that favorite moment of mine on the record could relate interestingly to what we're talking about. And now I say, Ivy, you are my light and you are my sunshine. What are your immediate thoughts about that moment, that address from you to your wife? And now I say, and then there it is. What are your thoughts on that moment?
Well, that part of the verse specifically comes from when she and I first met. The very instant that we met. We met at the music venue and bookstore Moon Palace.
Oh yes.
In January of 2019, and our moment of meeting was a mutual friend. Basically turning me to face Ivy and saying, oh, have the two of you met before? And the moment that I saw Ivy, she was, enshrouded in light. And it was this instant moment of like, oh, this is an extremely important life person.
And you could sense that immediately.
Immediately. It was like, oh, go into this portal. Like, yeah, go follow this direction.
Yes.
This
Say
is
yes to
important.
this.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, it was very much that. So that part of the verse is very specifically about that moment of meeting and being like, oh, you are light. Like, you are this amazing light in my life.
Do you need a light? I'll be your light.
Yes. Yeah.
Ivy shows up. And so how does that get woven into this song, which is, I think, one of my two favorites on the record.
Awesome.
Being There.
Yeah.
Being There has a lot of focus on one thing leading to another. Sometimes tides of heinous phases, tides of heinous, this is like getting over food poisoning and then things going well. Tides of heinous phases sometimes can lead to feeling the greatest.
Yes, sometimes really nasty and negative feeling parts of our lives. We struggle through them, and sometimes we can get to these amazing, beautiful moments of our lives.
Yep. Sometimes that leads to that.
Yes.
And then All My Life in the chorus led to here. So another instance of one thing leading to another.
Yes.
And it kind of already makes sense to me that this, the first encounter with Ivy fits in this song.
Yeah.
Therefore, one thing leading to another, especially if one recognizes and chooses to go down the portal.
Yes.
Whatever the portal is.
Right.
Is there more to be said about what role that initial encounter with Ivy is playing within this song that, amongst other things, pays attention to one thing leading to another, and that always being me being here?
Yeah. I think that's an excellent question because I don't think the song would exist in its completed song form at this point if it weren't for my wife Ivy coming into my life. I started writing the song Being There when I lived at that house in Powderhorn.
Yeah, which is to become my home.
Yeah, where we did our very first interview.
Yeah.
I started writing that song there, and at the
old
time,
Back to the City,
Yes.
all of the Back to the Cities that are in a house, that was once, prior to me living there, Adam's house.
Yes.
And you made a lot of the records.
A lot of albums got recorded there.
Yeah,
Yes.
in that room.
In that room, yes. So it's like, yeah, Twin Cities are a very small city,
Really?
and
Yes.
they just got even smaller.
And including Being There. You were working on the song Being There.
Yeah, it was called I Thought I Was Around at that point. And I didn't really have any lyrical content for it.
I'll Always Be Around is like the other vocal in the chorus.
Yes.
And that seems to, there's an interesting juxtaposition, I think, of the main line in the chorus, all my life led to here, every day being there.
Yeah.
And then I thought I'd be around. It seems like that is prior to a significant one thing leading to another that causes some kind of shift. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, no, like I thought I was around. I feel like that phrase, you can apply that to anything that you thought you knew yesterday, looking back on it from the point of view of today. Like I constantly sit here and think about myself in the past and like, oh, I thought I knew so much then. Well, you know, not from today me's standards. So kind of like thinking that I was around. It's like, oh, I thought I was there. I was not there. I'm there today. Although, of course, we'll get to tomorrow and I wasn't here today.
silly Adam thinking he was there.
Exactly.
Thinks tomorrow, Adam.
Yes. Which I hope continues to happen forever and ever and ever. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, totally. What was it called before?
It was called I Thought I Was Around. That was the working title when I just had the instrumental done at that Powderhorn house.
Right. That beginning of the song wouldn't have led to this song in its complete form if it had not been for the meeting with Ivy. How so?
Well, when I started writing this album and revisited this song as a potential to be on the album,
Yep.
I realized that it would be a great love song, and it would be a great like tribute to feeling grateful in my life, feeling grateful for my wife Ivy, and a commitment to the light that she has brought into my life, and all of the opportunities that we have like forged together in our marriage. We wouldn't have our son Nomi, you know. Yeah, there's just been so much. I wouldn't own a house. I wouldn't have this great social worker job that I have now without her. She has inspired a lot of very good things that have come into my life.
I didn't realize that you that's what your job is at the
Yes,
moment,
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and you
I-
would be a great one. I'm sure you are a great one.
I think I am, and I hope that I am, and that I can always get better. But yeah, I'm a vocational social worker with the company Opportunity Partners. So I help folks with disabilities. I don't really like that term, but I don't have a perfect term. I help folks at their jobs. Yeah. So yeah, we just have people all over the Twin Cities working, and I make sure that they are in a good environment and doing what they want to do and all that good stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Excellent. And Ivy was instrumental in.
She found the job through a friend of ours, Tim, who is in the band Pleasure Horse. He also works for this company, and she found out through him that they were hiring, and so I applied and landed. Yeah.
So Ivy plays a large role in the song Becoming What It Is.
Yes.
Ivy is one of very many people who have important roles to play in these songs taking the shape that they do.
Yes.
Two of those people are Erin Baum and Brock Lammers,
Yes.
who produced, engineered, and mixed the record at Mid-City Studio.
Right.
Let's focus on creating a record with Erin and Brock at
Yeah.
Mid-City Studio for a bit. Was this the first time that you worked in that studio with those
Yes.
guys? Yeah?
Yes. I knew that Erin, who has been a good friend of mine for years and was in the very first installment of my band Larry Wish and His Guys back in like 2010, 11.
One of the original guys.
He's an original guy, yeah.
An OG.
Yes,
Original guy.
Yes. I found out that he was co-running this studio, and I reached out to he and Brock and asked if I could take a tour and like consider recording this album there, and if they would like to have me. And we had a meeting and came to a wonderful agreement, and I'm really happy that I made this album in that studio.
Absolutely. I love that studio. We did some Back to the City sessions.
Really?
There. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they're really great to work with.
Yes.
They play on various songs as well. So Erin has some synth.
Yes, he
For example,
actually
some
came
hand
up with the
claps.
idea in being there after the lyric, I'll always be, making something new. There's this kind of squiggly synth sound. That was his idea. He was like, oh, we should put some like funny, wiggly, dreamy sound effect right there. And so he played that on, I think it was the OB8 synth. So I credited him for that part.
Yes.
Yes.
And then Brock does some hand clapping.
He did some hand clapping with me in the intro and re-intros of the song Again and Again and Again.
That's another of my favorites.
Awesome.
And
yes.
that one, it struck me, whereas all of the others, music and lyrics by Adam Wishworth, which is you,
Yes.
in Again and Again and Again, Marcus Burkhardt and James Denzer
Yes.
are also credited as writers. So
Yes.
what is the story there?
So Marcus and James and I were in a band in Rochester, Minnesota, where I grew up, in our teen years called Wink Appleby and the Medicinal Nine, where, I was like 15 and 16, and we would go to my friend Marcus's house, and we would jam on drums, bass, and guitar, and other fun instrument ideas like electric water bottle. We were trying to be like really fun and experimental and weird with creating music for the first time.
You play stepladder.
There's step ladder on again and again
song.
and again. Yes, some
Yeah.
percussive step ladder. But the intro and re-intro of Again and Again and Again is specifically taken from a song called Skull Stomp that the three of us had written as teenagers. And this album is all about, yes, that kind of like heavy plodding, like almost like stoner rock or metal sounding part of the song.
I love that.
The album is very much like a love letter to like elements in my life that have shaped me, and so I wanted to highlight these like formative musician years, and certainly give credit where credit is due, because I completely ripped off the band, but I just like wanted to use a bit of that music in any sort of way, and I always love using.
Yeah.
It's a Capricorn thing, I think. You know.
Same.
Yes, yeah. I know you know.
Ethical using.
Of course,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly,
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, it's play.
Yes.
It's play. And that past you that didn't know certain things, like it's lovely that past you that didn't know certain things, one of the things that he didn't know was that present you was using him.
Exactly, yeah.
What you were just saying about how the record as a whole honors these perhaps moments in the formation of Adam.
Yeah.
I'm interested in how that relates to the title. The Mind is the Builder. Kind It Takes is the song that for me related most to that title.
Cool.
The Mind is the Builder is kind of interesting to relate to the lyric, I saw every single moment leading up again, one thing leading to another, to the birth of the mind.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of focus just to unwind. Focus seems important to me in the record. If one hones focus, if one habituates oneself to being aware of what one is focusing on and being intentional about what one is focusing on, then one can collaborate with the mind, which is the builder.
Yeah. To make things happen.
Yeah, the
to
mind is going to be building
real.
what, in any case.
Yes.
And one can take a lot of focus to unwind, and the mind could be building. It takes a lot of kindness to be alive. That's where the Kind It Takes title comes from in an interesting way. I like how it gets kind of switched around.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, I like to be playful with song titles, as you know.
Astral Projection, for example.
Yes.
Astral Projection obviously evokes astral projection, which is some kind of a soul journey of some kind. Yeah. Which seems pertinent. We've been talking about serendipity, synchronicity, and going down portals.
Yes.
Is there something about evoking the idea of a soul journey that is significant?
Yeah, that song is very much, in the lyrics, it's very much about kind of the idea of like a soul journey or going beyond the veil from lifetime to lifetime, or the journey that we might take as like theoretical extensions of consciousness, if there is like a grand like unifying consciousness. And so it's very much about like the idea of a soul journey, and I try to paint that in like the imagery of breaching the surface ground, which is kind of like, you know, maybe we die and then we reach the surface and we're somewhere else. Breathe clean air you found, we're renewed. In the second verse, we find ourselves as a cow, kind of like happily munching grass in a barnyard or pasture somewhere, kind of happy to watch the other cows running around. We're not really too enticed to join in, but we just kind of like to be a voyeuristic cow and think of what a life might look like as that cow. So that ties into how the title is a little playful, because, you know, I love to explore what the nature of a soul might be, and spirituality and consciousness and all these things. But I also love to not take anything too seriously.
Right.
And to make sure that there is an element of play at all times. if
Absolutely.
possible.
Yes, me too, increasingly.
Yeah.
Increasingly. We just visited the two verses. The first verse ends, thoughts interior left ignored will explore.
Yes.
For me, that relates to, well, this is, again, one thing leading to another. If one isn't honing one's focus,
Or if you like suppress something so much for such a long time, or keep something bottled up, or just keep something interior, it might find a way to explore, or to get out, or
come out sideways.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thoughts interior open doors we'll explore.
Yeah, and
is
that's
how
kind
the
of the
second
like
verse ends.
creating, the ideation and like manifestation and making things happen.
Yeah. Let's focus a little bit on the instrumentation. You have such a wonderful ensemble
20 people, including myself. Yeah.
playing. I love all the brass instruments.
Yes.
So you've got. It took a long time to list all 20 people. But playing tenor sax, we have both Joe Burns and Ivan Cunningham.
Yes.
Joe's also playing some trumpet. We have an alto sax, but none other than Nelson Devereaux.
Right.
A wonderful musician and human being. I suppose we'll just list the other people: Tim Evanson, Ben Link, Gus Murphy, Marielle Oliveira.
Yes.
Our roommate.
Right.
Thank you for gifting me Marielle as a roommate.
Of
by
course.
moving.
Yeah.
And then Noah, Cole, Andrew, and you and your wife.
Yes.
I'm really interested in the interplay between these various instruments and the vocals. So with Thoughts Interior, then after Thoughts Interior, then there's some playful instrumentation.
Yeah, there's the 3 trombone players who form a band called Trombone Band.
Wow.
I'm not sure if they're active anymore, but they were. That was Andrew Thoreen, Ben Link, and Gus
Murphy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you play trombone too.
I played some trombone in the more like in the intro Seth Speaks, which is full of improvisation.
Yes.
That's really the only trombone or any brass instrument that I would be able to play is strictly like improv. I can make things happen out of instruments that I don't know how to play, but if it needs to be like play D sharp to F to G, I like to leave that to others who are more familiar with the instruments. So those 3 are on Astral Projunction.
Yep, and they're doing the playful thing that I heard. That's them after Thoughts Interior, and then Open Doors. We'll explore more playing. I feel like the lyrics often open doors for the instrumentation to play.
Yeah.
And the instruments will be prompted by word or phrase. Similar to Aaron thinking it needs to have this a bit of synth here.
Right.
Could you expand a bit on that interplay of the vocal and the instrumentation, perhaps especially in the context of there being such a rich and large ensemble involved?
Right. Well, I really, really enjoy balance in my composing and my songwriting. Some things are a little more maximalist, like if you've heard the album Capricorn Sun that came out in September, which was all kind of like goofy, zany synth wildness, and then we have songs that are more straightforward, like almost pop rock or popular song format, tunes like this. So I like the idea of balance in like music making. And within this album and these songs, I like the balance of including parts with vocals and including parts that are strictly instrumental. Just because I do like making music just for instruments and not for voice. But I also love singing, and I love thinking of vocal medleys and vocal lines.
Yeah.
And love the idea of call and response too.
Call and response. Yeah,
Yes.
that's what's going on there. Isn't
Yeah,
it? And
yeah.
there's quite a lot of call and response, playful,
Yes.
whimsical.
Listen to the bass in that
Yeah.
chorus. Thoughts interior will explore. The bass only comes along with those trombones. It's a bass part that has so much space in it. I think it's there's a bit of nothing, and then the bass hits 2 notes, and then more nothing, and then it does this downward run with the trombones.
Honoring these purely instrumental parts of the record, I think the
being there,
being
yeah.
there, that's probably like that soundbite is like my favorite bit
Nice.
of the record.
Awesome.
What's going on instrumentally in that hook in Being There?
In that hook, there's drums, there's bass, there is rhythm guitar, there's synth.
Yep. You got Sam Kramer's on the bass.
Yes. Yep. Pat Kessler was playing the rhythm guitar part for that. I was on drums and doing the synth chord progression. And then we have Stacy Weiss playing the lead guitar line, that do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And then I am doubling her part with a very like high in pitch synth line that mirrors her part.
Yes.
And then we have Cole Police playing sax, doing these like wonderful sax octaves.
Yeah.
Do-dit-dit, 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 kind of mirroring the rhythm of the bass.
Absolutely.
So we have balance,
it's
even
so
though we
well
have so much
constructed.
going on.
Yes,
Thank
exactly.
you. Thank
Yes.
you.
And so, how does the idea of the mind being the builder relate to perhaps this elaborate musical construction?
Well, I think it just relates to that in terms of, if you think it can be. And if you focus on something, you can make any sort of plan or any sort of action happen, as long as you focus on it long enough or you really try. And just in terms of like music making, I guess that's how I write a lot of my music, is just really focusing hard on the writing of it and the composition, but also letting myself not focus on it and having a balanced amount of play and accidental composition and happy accidents. Yes, exactly, exactly. There are always accidents left in a lot of my music throughout the years.
So the fact that you like balance seems thematically relevant to the records too, insofar as by the end, in Again and Again and Again, calling me to understand my ground is a lyric that really resonates. And then in the final song, Unmute, I'm in my trust. That resonates in a similar way.
Yeah.
And so I think there's...
Trusting yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Having self-confidence and almost like standing your ground in being like confident in your ability to do things. But then again and again and again, when you're called to understand your ground, sometimes we are maybe more humbleness is required. So instead of standing your ground, you should understand your ground, and then maybe conceptually understand your ground.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And an idea that, so in this book, which Chandler, a recent guest on Back to the City, lent me.
Oh, cool.
Just after the interview with Chandler.
Yeah.
Living in Flow, it's about the science of synchronicity and how your choices shape your world. And the idea there is that synchronicity, perhaps such as the interview with Rupert Angel Eyes happening immediately after this one, when the two of you are doing the record together, that kind of unlikely happy accident, nice coincidence, occurs according to this book when one is able to get clarity about what one's intention is, and then focuses on that intention and acts in alignment with that,
Yeah.
then unpredictable outcomes.
Yeah.
There's a metaphor of going down branches of a tree, and there's going to be more apples
Yeah.
that have the like the felt sensation
Yeah.
that one intends.
Right.
And it seems like these songs consistently are kind of testifying to engaging in a process like that.
Yeah. But can I also say, I think
You can
that
say it.
sometimes also the opposite is true. Like if you focus on something and pursue it, you might get there. But I think if you focus on not pursuing something so hard, sometimes we're presented with the thing that we didn't want also. Like if you were to spend like years and years and years deeply terrified about stubbing your toe, and you always fretted about stubbing your toe and you thought about it night and day, I think eventually you would probably stub your toe.
Yeah,
And it
the
would
mind
kind
is
of
a builder.
be a big climax.
Totally, yes,
Yeah.
yes. The mind is doing lots of focusing on toe stubbing.
Yeah. Creating opportunities
Right.
in all directions.
Absolutely. Yes, I think that's true. Related to this, the journey to understanding one's ground and being in one's trust, in the only me ? I feel like that's another song which engages in this same conversation. On the one hand, there are tongues come offers, other tongues
Yeah.
offering to tell me who I am.
Yeah. From formed tongues come offers to tell me who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas later, all the love spent saving to show you who I am.
Yeah. So are you going to let others tell you who you are, or are you going to let your like inner experiences and your own mind inform you of who you are yourself?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. That seems absolutely central to what the record is doing.
Yeah.
That contrast.
Yeah.
This song, The Only Me ? Obviously the title I think draws attention to those two lyrics.
Yeah.
I'm interested in this song, The Only
Yeah.
Me ? Because and how the song evolved once
Right.
once there was a song,
Right.
and we're building the
Yeah.
song. How the song evolved in a way that explores this interesting territory.
The song is a reflection on thinking about how many times you change throughout your life. And then almost zooming out to think about like, well, if I've changed this much, are there other dimensions, where I'm like changing exponentially in different ways? Has that been happening throughout multiple lifetimes if I am like a soul or an extension of consciousness going through like a grand journey? How big is everything versus like how small is this kind of like idea of an ego, and
Totally.
contrasting or trying to balance those two ideas of like maximal hugeness and
Yep.
like tiny smallness.
Yep. And when I'm that cow eating the green grass until mouth is open still, watching the others run.
Yeah.
Like, me as that cow as well. I like how this. I really like the balance of curiosity and going down these kinds of rabbit holes
Yeah.
and playfulness.
Yes.
It's a good combination.
Yeah. I have to think about all of those things all the time. But I think that again, if I take it too seriously, that's not the right direction for me to go in.
Yeah, don't think about oneself as a grass-eating cow too much.
Yeah, exactly.
On that note, with the idea of changing, becoming a new person, I love that at the beginning of The Only Me ? The birds are not spreading their wings, but rather shedding their wings.
Yeah, maybe they're becoming something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is interesting because, of course, and it's similar. A similar thing happens with there's a instead of a tear in something, there's a tear.
A tear in the fabric of time from
Yeah.
Kind It Takes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because time sees so much of humanity, and you have to think that maybe there's a lot of different feelings about what we're all doing all the time. And maybe there are no feelings, but I kind of like the idea of time zooming into like something that happened with like a group of people or one people, and just shedding a tear for them, or having a feeling for them, having some empathy.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that in both of those instances, the more conventional phrase, tearing the fabric of time,
Yeah.
or birds spreading their wings,
Yeah.
is still kind of there doing some work, because, the idea of spreading one's wings does suggest, coming into trusting oneself.
And a tear seems accidental, which, like, if maybe zooming out enough, I don't think that there would be such an accident that would happen in the like grand scheme of things. I feel like a tear is more plausible, an emotion or a feeling, rather than like, whoops, the universe experienced a little. Somebody
Silly.
mishandled the universe a little bit. Like, yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of an emotion rather than a weird
Injury.
accidental violence or an injury. It doesn't seem like plausible. I don't know.
Right. Yes. Seth Speaks. It is. I like that the record opens
Yeah.
with. So that we have do we have all 20 members of
We
the
don't have
ensemble
all
there?
20 people, but we have all of the people who played a brass or a wind instrument.
Yes.
And how we recorded that is I had 20 musical prompts for everybody.
Oh.
Like one would be act like chickens, or pretend you're babies, or you're really scared. Just like different acting and emotional prompts.
Did you create those prompts?
Yes, and
Yep.
then we would record 2 minutes of all of the musicians acting out through their instruments whatever the prompt was. And then we ended up with 40 tracks, and I think something like, once you layer everything on top of each other, it was like 400 horns. So that intro Seth Speaks is just 30 seconds of 400 horns all blaring at once, which comes from a dream that I had.
Oh yes.
Which was the idea for this intro and outro of the album.
Okay.
And the dream was the most beautiful and vivid dream I've ever had. I was in maybe someplace like the Arctic, somewhere very far north, where it is light all the time. And there were 3 giant orbs that were slowly traveling down to Earth. And it was apparent to everybody that these were like 3 ancient consciousnesses that were coming to visit Earth. And everybody was so feeling every possible emotion about it, and everybody was blaring their horns up at these 3 eternal consciousnesses that were coming to visit Earth. And so everybody was blaring their horns out of like happiness and joy and excitement, and out of like fear and nervousness and urgency and anger. And it was one of the only dreams where I've heard explicitly all of the sounds too, and so I was really trying to recreate that.
Ah, wow.
Yes.
Yes. And why was that a fitting opener for this record?
I just wanted to, I love bookend records. I love it when an album starts out with a theme or a motif, and then at the very end you get kind of the same thing, and then you can kind of like wrap it into itself if you want to replay the album back to back. And I really wanted I wanted to have a short intro to the album, because I like to have a short intros sometimes. And I wanted the album to just start like all at once with just a wall of horns, a wall of sound. Because I also love films and cinema so much, and it just feels so cinematic to me to have this like opener that is instantly, just horns, massive amounts of horns.
Yeah, and I love knowing now that it comes from this dream where the noise, the cacophony, is for the most part, joyful, exuberant cacophony as it sounds,
And fearful.
But there is, yeah,
It's
but
everything.
it is laced with fear, yes,
Yes,
because of these ancient consciousnesses,
Yeah.
and there's a sense of encountering these consciousnesses.
Yeah, it's a big question mark. Why are they coming here? What's going to happen? What
Yes.
will change?
And it fits with some of the themes that come up in the songs.
Yeah.
I think this idea of encountering mind.
Yeah,
Uh,
and change.
yeah.
Yeah.
We have, in Kind It Takes, there is the person. So like we have
Yeah.
the mind.
Yeah.
In Kind It Takes, we have the person.
Person, any person.
And what?
I like when songs,
Yeah.
as a listener, I like when you can listen to a song and you can imagine yourself in the song. Or you can imagine that the song is about anyone instead of like maybe. I'm gonna eat my own words here, I guess, because I also like songs that are about specific people or like character studies.
Yes.
Like the Queen of England
Oh, yes.
was like a bit of a character study of mine from the Not From My Come From album.
Yes, yes.
That,
Which
that
our
you
first
interviewed
interview
me
was
about.
about.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I also, at the very opposite end of things, in a balance, I like it when something is a very open-ended, non-character study where the listener can imagine maybe it's themselves, maybe it's anyone who they might be thinking of, maybe it's a totally faceless, featureless person. Yeah.
The record is communicating things about not just like my mind or your mind, but the mind.
Sure.
It doesn't get lost in abstraction, but I like the way in which abstraction is used, particularly in Kind It Takes.
Yeah.
What is it about that song that lends itself to this story about the person?
Yeah, that song, a lot of that lyrical content came from, very much came from like the precise time that most of these songs and the album was written in, which was April 2020, April and May 2020, where we had COVID, we had the murder of George Floyd and all of the uprising and having, our cities in chaos and many cities around the nation and the world in chaos. So when I was writing lyrics for this song, I was thinking of people crying out for more. We need more. What do we need more of? We need more resources. We need more this, that. We have a person crying out for less injustice, less hate, less oppression, less police brutality. So in creating these lyrics, I just really was trying to focus on any person casting out these different emotions, crying out, tears in the fabric of time kind of looking down on earth and saying like, look at humanity, like we celebrate humanity so much and we have only love for humanity, but we should have empathy and we should have sadness too with all the sad, terrible things that happen. So I in Kind It Takes, I feel that they are the most favorite lyrics of mine that I've ever written.
Yes.
And maybe the most proud song that I have, or my favorite song that I have.
Yeah, I can understand why. One of my favorite moments in it is the person cried out again with their most vocal extension. They didn't know it, but the sound that escaped from their mouth was the single most important thing of beauty that the world has ever heard.
Yeah.
And then we have Noah's cornet.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful too.
Yes.
And the kind of, but also playful. What thoughts do you have about that particular lyric and the idea of this person being unaware of the beauty of their self-expression?
Yeah, I just like that poetic idea that, I mean, a person can use their entire being to create something and maybe not know of the furthest ripples
Yeah.
that it will have, and
Yeah.
maybe that it will, do a lot of good for another person, or make somebody else experience joy, or change somebody's life so much that they're like cured from an illness, or that they like completely do a 180 in their perception of life and have like an amazing rest of their life.
Yeah.
I also think that it directly ties into that cornet part that Noah played in a very accidental
Yes,
and
happy
playful
accident.
way.
Yep.
Because when Noah was recording this cornet part, the way that I had like demoed it out for him, he said that some of the notes were like not very within the range of a cornet and were too high, and he was not sure if he would be able to like reach those notes. And we said, well, let's try. And so he tried, and he ended up getting it and achieving those super high notes. But I think that that was a very lovely tie-in to like a person expressing themselves and not knowing what the expression would hold for themselves or for others.
I love it.
And kind of finding that it had this like lovely ending, and like, oh, well, I can do it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think that the only song that we have not visited is 3 songs.
Yes.
In the Chestnut Tree, Cuddle Up, Perfect Day. So these, if I understand correctly, are you're kind of covering 3 songs.
Yes, it's a medley of 3 different covers.
A medley of 3 different covers.
Yes.
And it's seamless how the songs transform from one to another, and it fits with the theme of the bird shedding its wings.
Yeah.
The idea of a song suddenly shedding its wings and becoming a different song.
Right.
So I'm interested in the genesis of this.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's an unusual thing to do.
I love doing covers, and I think that that's a really important part of music and the history of music, and being a musician is playing others' music, and sometimes, having these moments where we're entirely wholly original, and other times where we're paying homage to others, and maybe being like ego-less and saying like, look at these other lovely people and these other lovely works. And I've the egotistical part of me is like, well, I would really like to create a medley, because I love doing covers. I want to try to do like a seamless medley of 3 songs. And so I don't know if these 3 songs are all in the same key. They might all be in like the key of C, but I think that if they weren't there, I got them there.
Yes, yes.
So that they all kind of like flow melodically and kind of have like the same tonal seat. And the originals, of course, all have like different rhythms. I think all 3 of them don't really even have percussion in the original songs, but yet they're kind of set to like a disco-y beat in this version.
Yes.
That kind of tie them all together, or at least like the train tracks that they're all riding on.
Yep.
In the Chestnut Tree is, of course, by the Scottish musician and humorist Ivor Cutler, who I feel like is not very well known here in the States. But I think that if you are like a hardcore Beatles fan, you would probably recognize him from the character of the very plain and stoic, bland uncle character from their film A Magical Mystery Tour. Ivor Cutler has like a long career from like the 50s to the 90s, I believe, where he made many albums of very like humorous and folksy, playful music, which I encourage anybody to check out. Ivor Cutler. You will love his work.
In the Chestnut Tree song,
Yes.
I like that it dramatizes joining someone else in what they're doing.
Yes.
Which is what you're doing with Ivor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, where are you? Where are you? I'm in the chestnut tree. What are
Yeah.
you doing? Why are you there? I want to feel the breeze.
Yeah.
Look out, I'm coming up. I want to sit beside you. I want to feel the breeze. You are sitting beside Ivor in the
Right.
chestnut tree,
Yes.
feeling the breeze.
Yeah.
And the ego gets a bad rap in general in our culture. There's lots of ego bashing.
Yes.
So
I think embrace it too, because I
Yes.
mean we have it for a reason.
it's pretty useful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like having a sense of self and
Yes.
stable sense of identity at any given time is useful.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel that when ego bashing ends up happening, like it is mostly like the ego in disguise that's doing the bashing.
Oh,
because
sure, yeah.
That's the kind of thing that the ego does.
It's like a hammer smashing a hammer because it's mad that the hammer's a hammer.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly the case. Whereas the idiosyncratic thing that your ego is doing here, playing with, using these songs, is lovely, I think. It's nice to be talking briefly about the ego because I feel like
Yeah.
that is given a place. And
Yeah.
and there's more. If we were to just let the ego like control, the happy accidents wouldn't happen.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and I think you know, it's yes, I'm playing with and arranging music by other people and like very much like putting myself front and center, being the only person like singing these songs. Of course, there are other musicians playing the instruments, but yeah, I'm very much like molding their songs into my outlook and what I want it to be. But I think that is often perfectly acceptable, and you know, I think we wouldn't have a lot of beautiful paintings if we were sort of like, no, let that color red just be red, and let that blue be blue, and never the twain shall be mixed together or used in any sort of controlling way. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a perfect segue to this. Here we have
Oh, yes.
the album cover, so some kind of art is being created here, it seems.
Yes.
But we have the context. It makes me think of the three consciousnesses.
Yes.
Coming down. So what strikes me, it made me think of the conversation that we had in our second interview, where you and your guys performed some songs, and one of them was The Designer.
Yes.
And in our conversation about The Designer, we discussed how the creative process can isolate the creator, and what we've been saying just now about using. So maybe this is, here we have the designer, or the the designer. Here we have the designer.
Yeah, that's a good name for that being.
And the designer, like the you of the past, who didn't know things that the you of the present knows. This designer knows that they are creating art.
Yes.
But we, as the person witnessing, know that there's a whole other 2/3
Yeah.
of the frame here.
Where they're maybe being influenced by outside forces.
Yes, exactly.
Or guided, or maybe supported.
Yeah.
Or maybe just being watched. Yeah.
How does this relate? I think it does in many ways. How do you think that this relates to the record and the discussion that we've been having?
Well, this is a painting that I did when I was going to Minneapolis College. And I was in an art class, and I made this painting, and I hung it up in my basement and didn't really do anything with it for years. I think I did it in 2016 or 17. And then after kind of like listening to the demos of this album, and then listening to the mixes and listening to this album on my computer for like a good couple of years, I kept looking over and seeing this artwork on my wall. And the more and more that like the songs were in the physical space of this artwork, the more it just made sense.
Yes, yes.
You know, visual themes aside, now the whole thing is put together, I of course think that they were meant to be, and that they're married together perfectly. I mean, we have a little builder here who is kind of like creating something, or washing dishes, or moving objects together, and weaving little spells, and is being possibly guided, supported, or influenced, or just watched by outside sources, is kind of a little puppet of consciousness, but also is its own little ego being.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it all just ties together in such a perfect way that I couldn't have planned for. I couldn't have asked for something better, but it just happened.
Yes, and I love the fact that there's a perspective from which you are like the ego being that creates the record and that previously created the art.
Yeah.
And that these two...
But why am I? Like, am I doing it alone, or
Right.
do I have like
There's the
spiritual
other- there's the
guides
other
and
two
supports?
thirds.
Yeah, exactly. What are the 2/3? I'm
Well,
only 1/3. That's very like ego humbling. That's great.
Yes.
But I'm a very strong 1/3.
Yes,
There we
exactly.
go. He brings the balance back.
I love it. Okay, so let's, as we approach the end, which is also the beginning of Kyle being here,
Yes.
then let's focus on ends in 3 different ways.
Yeah.
So we have, for a start, the end of the 3-part cover,
Yes.
which is Nilsson, Harry
Yes.
Nilsson.
Perfect day.
I saw it referred to somewhere online as a brief and grand ending to his final RCA Records album.
Yeah.
And of course, it's about ending. It's the perfect way to end a
Yes.
perfect day.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a focus on the end there. Then also at the end of the Only Me ?
Right.
Every precious moment has no end, no
Yes.
end. And I like that it fades out
Yes.
to kind of emphasize the having no endness
Yeah.
of things.
But
And
it
that
does
that
end,
is-
but we
and-
don't get to hear the how
exactly.
it ends.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. The end of the song is about things not having an ending.
Yes.
And then the end of the record, I'm almost finished. Finished. Here you go. Get up. Get old. And then, ellipsis.
Question mark. Yeah.
Shed the wings.
Yes.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
So
Reach the surface ground.
do you? Yes.
Back to the beginning.
Absolutely.
With the horns.
Absolutely, yes. So, at the ending here now, I was going to ask if you have any reflections on endings, given the return to the focus on endings throughout.
I think it's important to have endings, but I don't think that they need to be sacred. Like, I think if something is ended, you can always unend it. I always like to say that that music is alive forever. So if you record a song and you finish it and it's done and you put it out there and say it's done, it's in a way like your process of making it has ended. But I also think that you can always come back, revisit it, change it however you want it to be, which is something that I love doing with my own music, is revisiting aspects of it again and again and again and making it different.
Sat in that seat, Charlie Parr was saying something extremely similar to that
Awesome.
just the other day.
Yeah.
When I was kind of quizzing him about his sense of the sacredness of music, it kind of boiled down to music being alive.
Yeah.
As you were just saying, a recording is unable to kind of contain
Yeah.
the life of the
Yeah.
song.
It's sacred, like celebrate it like it's sacred, but don't trap it
Right.
with any ideas of, oh, it's sacred, so it needs trapping and protection
Yep. On which then
from anything.
we're going to be celebrating these songs at the Eagles
Yes.
on but not trapping them.
No, they will be trapped in a room for a brief period of time, but then we're going to let them out also. We'll have that balance in that contract.
And that will be one last time on Saturday, April 20th.
Yes.
I have the night off the job, which is a night job, so I will be there.
Awesome.
I'm very happy to say for you and Rupert Angel Eyes and also Products and Shrimp Olympics.
Yes.
My band, you said in the post that you put out today, the day that we did the interview, will be playing music from the new album, and you know there will be special guests.
Yes,
We've already highlighted that there are 20 people that play on the record. So
Yes.
we can look forward to encountering some of that.
Fingers crossed. And maybe even some more that we didn't intend
Wow.
on.
Excellent.
Yes.
Wow. So here we are at the end. I'll just fade us out.
Perfect. Yeah.
This has been
Yeah.
Back to the City.
We're done.